Well, welcome everyone to episode 17. I think we're on now of the Real Profit, Real Perspective podcast. Last week's episode was a little bit different where we covered some current events, and, we figured what better way to keep up this trend of making things different from week to week than by having my wonderful co host Ryan get sick and be out of commission. And so I figured I'd go ahead and because, as we all know, the algorithm abhors inconsistency. So I figured I'd go ahead and, ramble a bit for however long we need to on an episode about AI so that we can have some content for all of our wonderful, dear listeners so that you all, when you tune in the morning, have something to listen to. And so I spent a good portion of the day kind of racking my brain. What do I want to what can I talk about? And I went, well, I could talk about accounting and a bunch of other stuff for, 30, 40, 50 minutes, that kind of thing, like what we've done in previous episodes. But I figured, let's continue doing kind of the hot topic. The thing that everybody is constantly talking about. I've gotten questions. It's always in the news. It is, it's the hot topic in the same way that crypto and NFTs were a long time ago, and that's AI. Because it feels like these days you can't go down the street without getting hit in the face with another article about AI. And I don't know, it's been something. Speaking as somebody, in an industry that I'll I've seen articles where it talks about, the death of bookkeeping. Bookkeeping's going to be replaced, or accountants are going to be replaced by generative AI, which uh, no, they're not. Most of honestly, most of what we do is not even the actual, bookkeeping work, but trying to corral clients into giving us what we need and, kind of dealing with the human aspect. But I digress. It is something that's been on my mind a lot, both from a, how is this going to impact my line of work? Because I'd be a fool if I wasn't sitting there trying to, project forward how are these AI tools going to help or hinder what we can do, but also just from a, I don't know, like a larger societal impact point. I mean, I swear to God, it's almost like if you need a bot to do something, somebody can do it. But I guess if they say the best place to start is at the beginning. So when I say AI, what am I referring to? Um, so I'm referring to, Chat GPT, Grok when it's not busy shit posting on Twitter, Gemini, all the large language learning models that have been, these conglomerations of, I'm assuming the back end is code, although I know a lot of them can get, the way those things are structured can get so wild, particularly when you get into, probably the core machine learning. But basically, these, the large language models out there that have been trained on, you know, all the information that I guess humanity has ever put out. And, now you can go online and have a chat with a chatbot that can talk like a real person, or if you've actually talked to people, talk way, way more eloquently than a real person. But that's kind of what I'm referring to here. I mean, it's stupid. It really is stupid to say AI, because for starters, it's not like it's not real AI. Like, people hear AI and they think, you know, Data from Star Trek, or Cortana from Halo, or pick your favorite sci-fi series with an actual general artificial intelligence that is effectively an artificial construct but is fully sentient and can learn, and, can develop and truly understands the kind of the world, the information that it's talking about. That's like everybody with AI being thrown around like this, that's not what most of these things. I mean, that's not most. That's what none of these are. That's not what Chat GPT is. That's not what Gemini or Grok or any of that's not what they are. What they are is just really super advanced chatbots that you know just predict if you're talking about something. Well, we've read every book that exists, and whenever people would talk about these things, or this particular author wrote in this way, this is what that would look like using really really advanced predictive models for text. Like that's it. It's not, Chat GPT doesn't actually know what the fuck it's telling you. It's just it guesses. The Grok just guesses. Gemini just it guesses when you're talking to it. I mean, it's really really good at guessing because if you've looked at everything humanity has ever created, it gives you a pretty good data set. But that's all it is. It's not like it doesn't understand. And I guess that's my first hang up with a lot of it. On what gets me, maybe why I'm not using it as much as I should, is that it's like when you're working or wanting AI to do something. I know a lot of people will, you know, well, I asked ChatGPT and it said to do this. Yeah, well, ChatGPT doesn't know what the fuck it's talking about. It's guessing. There's that famous couple attorneys who got disbarred because they asked it to do legal research and it just made shit up, and then those court cases couldn't be found, and it was a really easy thing. It just makes things up. So that I don't remember where I was going with this. Oh, it's not real AI. They're really fancy chatbots. We've had those for a long time. So I mean, kudos to the marketers out there that made it's AI. That's way snappier than it's a super advanced. It's just a chatbot, or it just uses machine learning, which used to be I think about 5 years ago, that was the big thing that everybody was talking about. It's a tech platform. It's we've got machine learning in there. The machine can learn, and now it's AI. Anyway, man, this is so much easier to keep things coherent when Ryan is here to keep me a little more focused. Oh, anyone who is tuning in for his dulcet tones instead of listening to me rant for a while, I'm sorry. You're 8 minutes in. This is all you're gonna get. So now that we've established what AI isn't, I see a decent bit of it. I mean, it seems like every industry is trying to answer that. Well, how do we take advantage of AI? I mean, with a lot of what we do in our day to day, God bless Intuit for now infesting QuickBooks with an unwanted AI companion to everything that's going on, that gives useful insights when we're trying to do categorization work of, hey, maybe this transaction is this thing. And it's like, well, thanks, Intuit bot. I didn't know McDonald's was meals and entertainment. It Half the time it's either really easy stuff that anybody could get, or it has absolutely no idea because it doesn't have any actual surrounding context. And I think that's my big hang up, at least with a lot of these language models or these AI models, whatever, with how they're kind of employed, is that it lacks the context to truly understand what something is. Really really good at identifying patterns in data. I'm not going to knock that at all. It is really really good. I mean, that's what it's been trained to do, at identifying patterns. So I think in a lot of those areas, it's going to be fantastic for new discoveries. Medicine in identifying patterns for diagnoses, large data analytics, which I mean, that was already heuristics, but now it's got a new name to it. But when at least in my industry, when I see a lot of these, can we replace accountants with AI? There's so much non-technical context that's needed. When I say non-technical, I mean the stuff that almost, I guess, not non-technical, non-digital context that is needed, that it can't perform like a lot of these companies want it to. I'm sure there'd be a counterpoint to, well, Connor, if it's a large corporation and they've got all this data, they can deploy that and they don't need the accounting department because it sees all that stuff. And you know what? Maybe that's true. Um, maybe that's just because that's a world that I don't really deal a whole lot with. I don't deal in the day to day with large companies that have really clean data and the ability to deploy something like that. I deal with small businesses where it's a miracle that we can get any documentation, in the first place. And you know, I I do, obviously a good part of this is hype, because most of these AI places are needing so much seed money. I mean, of course they're going to hype up whatever their most recent their product that they're doing, because they want to go out and get a bunch of investor money, get PE, whatever, because they're sitting there going, I got a 3 month runway, I need another $200 million, or the entire dev team's going to disappear. So I know a lot of it is, of course, marketing hype, in the same way it was marketing hype behind crypto and any new flavor of thing. But I don't know, it's weird in that I part of me doesn't understand the fascination or the desire to replace as many people as possible with AI. Um, it, it may just be because, my own business is people, and never mind the fact that it would really suck to be the sole owner of a business that is entirely staffed by chatbots, because there's no people involved. And from kind of a client service standpoint, I do enjoy dealing with people, but I don't understand a lot of business leaders who are so fixated on the idea of, we can lay off an entire workforce and replace them with AI. I was reading an article earlier, actually, about, shows how much I've been paying attention to this, but probably because when it comes to the hiring process, I've been in business for over half a decade now, and I haven't had to get hired myself, and my own hiring I just take care of. So I don't understand why they do this, but apparently there are businesses out there that are using AI interviewers to interview candidates, as in a literal artificial person that the candidate is talking to, that asks them these predefined interview questions and records what they say and does a little bit of follow up, so that when you are hiring for a position at, I guess, a large company or some of these, with how stressed or overworked the HR department is, which again, this must be a large company problem, because public accounting, I've always heard that they can't find enough people. So at least in my industry, I don't exactly know why you would need that level of automation in the first place, because I thought we were struggling to find people. And I'd always heard for the longest time that nobody wants to work and it's hard to find good people. So just a little bit of an aside there. But the idea that you apply to a company, you finally get through the initial part of the system, and then the first person that you talk to isn't even real. I, maybe it's just because I like to keep too much control over my own company, but just from like a people standpoint, that seems so incredibly dehumanizing that like you can't put in the effort to identify your top people and then actually have them talk to a person. I I know a lot of them say that it's for high turnover positions like customer, retail or whatever, which I don't know, maybe part of the reason why they have such high turnover is because you've got the kind of company culture that instead of trying to identify why we've got high turnover in the first place, let's just fucking replace everyone with AI bots. I cannot wait for the day where I have to call Comcast and I just get to talk to an AI. That'll truly mark the day in which we have slid into a cyberpunk dystopia. But I mean, as a business leader myself, I don't understand that, and I wonder if that's because I'm not focused enough on the bottom line, which would be ironic considering what I do. But it seems to me that there is an element of we can replace all these people with these tools that are substantially cheaper. That yet again, I don't think I've had a good rant on the podcast yet about my complaints about American business culture being incredibly short-sighted with their decision making. The whole chasing next quarter profits and stuff like that. But it seems to me that everybody is in a rush to just be a first mover. And how much money can we make in the short term that there isn't a lot of consideration for what does this actually mean for the business in the long run. I think I saw another article, it might have been in the Wall Street Journal, where it was talking about, I think, large law firms and large data analytics firms, where they are saying that these new AI tools they have, what would take a junior attorney or a junior analyst a day or two or a night to put together can instead be thrown together by the tool in 30 minutes, an hour, maybe. And then it just needs to be reviewed by the senior analyst or the actual attorney. And then it's, ready for court or ready for action or ready to be used. And I, I just saying it out loud again, I don't understand some of the people that have made their ways into these positions where they can be the ones really spearheading these these kinds of decisions. Because in my business and in public accounting, there is a huge element of training and personal development. You start at the basic level, and then as you progress through your career, you start off doing all the shit work, the things nobody else wants to do. And then as you continue up doing more and more complicated work, you get to move away from doing the shit work. Now we get to actually do the more value add work, the more interesting stuff. Now somebody else, it's a constant learning progression. Every new position you basically it's going to build off of what you've done on the bottom. So for example, in my own business, I take former financial auditors because I like my new hires to have that audit background so they have an understanding of an entity kind of as a whole. I take financial auditors who understand financial accounting and over time turn them into business consultants. I know in public, particularly in audit, one of the common things is that you'll go for a few years and then, you'll hit either a senior accountant level, supervising senior manager, and then you'll jump over to, maybe a controller, assistant controller, or CFO, that kind of thing. And that's kind of what the usual going into industry um, pipeline looks like. Now, I think if you've been an auditor for 20 years and then you go become a CFO, if you haven't been running the business, there's still going to be quite a things that you're not going to understand, but that's kind of an aside. In my business, having people that can do the grunt work, the basic associates bookkeeper level categorization work, the things that everybody talks about, AI can do, or the bookkeeping firms out there can do. Doing that basic level stuff builds the foundation for everything else they will do in their career. They have to start at the bottom. I mean, anybody who's worked in the trades knows usually you get started doing the shittiest part of the work first. And then as you learn more about how it works, you get to do that same level of improvement, of, personal skill improvement, if that's what you're working on and trying to develop. So from a longevity of the business standpoint, I don't understand the rationale of effectively eliminating all of your junior positions to instead have these large language models handle that level of grunt work, where, as you say, now all it has to be done is reviewed by the senior person, because over time you're going to have other senior people leave. You're not going to have junior people that will then get promoted to senior that can then review all the work. You have completely eliminated your pipeline of new people. I don't understand the idea of removing that necessary building block level. Everybody who's progressed in their careers remembers when they started off in the beginning. And I'm I have to make the assumption that these are not unintelligent people making these decisions, that there is some thought going into this. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt and assume that baked into this is the idea that, well, we can just get senior people from other places, or let other businesses do the training that we don't want to do. Let them spend the time and effort to train these people, and then we will just poach them on the back end. Which, hey, I guess if you've got the budget and the profitability, because you're not paying a bunch of junior people, that may matter. But you're still, I don't know, it seems so incredibly short-sighted to do that. And I know me critiquing a lot of these business leaders is insane, because as we know, Silicon Valley and large business has never been short-sighted before. Every decision they make is well thought out, with a well thought plan, and everybody understands the ramifications of it. All right, I'll stop lying. Um, I don't. It's interesting in the ways that it has, because I do have some that I take advantage of, right? So I think there are particular tools, and I do think there will be some jobs that are going to be eliminated with the stuff where, to a certain extent, I think it's for the best. The one that, for example, I use the most is an automated transcription tool. So I personally am fucking awful at taking notes during meetings. I guess I don't have ADD enough. I can, or I do, I don't know. Basic, I can't focus on more than just the meeting, as opposed to the meeting and taking notes. And so in the beginning, that was always something I struggled with, was trying to keep good notes of what I was doing. to then remember afterwards, what the fuck was that meeting 2 months ago about that they're following up now? What the hell were we talking about? Shit, I don't remember. All right, let's figure out how to figure out context from a quick institute operation CYA. So I do use a transcription tool that's in my meetings. To be honest, for the most part, I don't actually use the AI summaries because those can be inaccurate at times, but at least the ability for the tool to keep a transcript of what was said in case I have to go refer back, I do find incredibly, incredibly handy for a lazy bastard like me. I think tools like that we do use also, for example, we got a tool that can turn bank statements into CSV files. So before I got that, we would spend a lot of time and effort on, you know, transcribing data from bank statements into Excel or trying to use the Adobe PDF converter tool, which has been fucking garbage forever. And, somebody would then have to either clean up the data or sit there and transcribe stuff out. And then now we actually have a tool that we can use where we can just upload those, go work on other things, and then it spits out a CSV file. I don't personally think there's a whole lot of value in actually having somebody sit there and manually transcribe that information. You don't learn anything from it. It just makes you want to kill yourself. So preventing people from having to do rote menial bullshit like that, I do think is very, very handy with these tools because it lets them do things that are a little more value add. But replacing the like the junior accountants, absolutely not. I know I've seen somewhere, and I'm just keeping some of the things here in the accounting field because that's what I deal with the most, where it's like a fully autonomous general ledger system where it will pull in transactions, auto categorize, and then put your financials together for you. And I am grateful those kinds of things exist because most likely what's going to happen is that as they have more business, when there are mistakes, the problem with this now is that if the system makes a mistake, and this is geared towards small businesses, when the system makes a mistake, it now makes the business owner the one responsible for fixing the mistake. That has the implied assumption that the business owner understands how the fuck to fix the mistake. I work with a lot of them. Granted, I'm a little biased. People that can handle things themselves usually don't come to me. I do have some that do because they say, I just don't want to deal with the shit anymore. Make my problems go away, in which case I'm more than happy to oblige. But I deal with a lot of business owners. And if you leave it up to them to identify mistakes in the books, they will not be able to do that. So now you get into this instance of, I know what their inclination is going to be. Well, the system's supposed to be doing this. I'm not really going to pay attention. I'm just going to take these numbers and run with it. And then you're going to end up with financial numbers that don't tie to reality and can result in tax bills that they shouldn't have been paying because the system doesn't know how to book things, or purposely accidentally understated income because it doesn't it double books or doesn't understand how to record, for example, distributions, things like that. If you have to ask me my gut instinct, it's probably going to cause more problems than it's going to solve, particularly because there are businesses out there that are staffed by trained human beings where this is the industry that they're supposed to work in, and they also can't figure out how to handle a lot of these mistakes, and that's what keeps us in business. It's I don't know, there's a I think an overzealousness to a lot of it. I think much like anytime you've got a new tool like this, uh, the blockchain was, the hot topic, you know, what was it, 10 years ago at this point? 10, everything was, how can we use the blockchain? And that kind of fizzled out as you had all these new startups and things. So I imagine there is a part of this that is just kind of the normal hype behind it. But the thing is that in the areas where it's not hype, it is wild what these things are capable of. Um, I think the one area that I'll admit it's got me really concerned is the because of how good the bots are at communicating with you, and the fact that it's not it's not a thinking being. It is just a program designed to effectively do whatever the user wants it to. Is that you have a lot of people that will get emotionally attached to these bots because they are the perfect companion in a way. If you want to talk to something that isn't really going to tell you anything you don't want to hear, they are kind of perfect for that. I mean, ultimately, these bots for could almost turn into a person's ultimate echo chamber, almost. In a lot of current social media, there's you see a lot of things people talk about. The echo chambers of how the various social media algorithms will push the content to you that you like to interact with. And so when you see something you don't like, you don't interact with it, and so it will continue to give you what you want. And so people, I think, I'm not going to get political with this, but there's the but that basically goes away with, everything that invalidates everything before the but. But I think you can look at a lot of the anything going on in politics. Part of I think we'd all be in agreement that part of why things have gotten so polarized is that you have different factions in every political alignment where they have their spaces, they have the things that they like to hear, and it continues to give them that. And so, from their point of view, the only things they hear are people who agree with them. And these kinds of bots, the um, are almost the extreme limit of that idea. The chat GPT will relent if you tell it, no, I don't agree with what you're telling me. Right. And you have this kind of perfect companion who will just agree with you. And I mean, what is what the hell is that going to do to people wanting to talk to other people? I mean, I know for a fact that, I mean, my generation are far more digital with a lot of our communications than obviously our parents. Now, not to turn into a boomer here, but there is a part of me that does wonder, like, what really is this gonna look like as it gets better and better and better? When you can ask the bot any question, or you can have it structured and give it the prompt in such a way that it tells you everything you agree with. What is that going to do to interpersonal relationships, over time? When as we still have the remaining remnants of COVID in less places to hang out, a lot of, what do they call them, the third locations, a lot of those that have closed, and then you have these things where people can really feel like the thing understands me, because most people don't understand that it is just predictive code. It's not a sentient being. I mean, yes, we there have already been the articles of people who've fallen in love with it, which I fucking Futurama was right, you know. Don't date robots. Well, what do you know? They were ahead of the curve. Here we are, where we're gonna have to start having PSAs in schools about no, Chat GPT doesn't love you. Don't date robots. At least in Futurama, the robots I think were, at least seemed actually sentient. But it is one of those where a lot of the business stuff I go, I don't know if back and forth is the is really the way to I don't know, describe it, but no, not back and forth. The technology itself, particularly with the more detailed models in medicine and stuff like that, is capable of some miraculous shit. And I think that that's really cool in the identifying of new proteins, in development of medicine, in the ways that it can do diagnostics. That's really really cool in in those kinds of areas where there's just no possible way for people to be good at that. But when you start to get into this general purpose stuff, it's just I don't know, it's wild. I mean, you've got bands out there that are making, entirely AI music, and you get to have almost an entire philosophical discussion on, is it if you've got the creation of music that has effectively no actual well, I get, you could make an argument that, what difference is there in creating music by being able to play it versus being able to, because we've synthesizers exist. So you can have music, electronic music created by people that don't actually know how to play the instruments. But I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit of a boomer in this one, but it seems different if you have a model that you can basically just tell, give me a emo metal remix of Darude Sandstorm, and then it's able to spit that out for you. I don't maybe I'm kind of a boomer in this. I mean, I'm not much of an artist, but it does it, to me at least there is an element of the art that is kind of lost. When you don't have somebody, I guess, really thinking about each aspect like that, or maybe I'm wrong, and this is where I find out that, well, just because it spits out the model, they still have to do a whole bunch of stuff. But there's something about the the idea of kind of losing the actual artist that just kind of seems, I don't know, sad almost. Like, how is it that art and music and everything is what gets fucking automated as opposed to the other boring accounting? How the fuck do I have to keep doing accounting work and the goddamn bots are able to just write music and make drawings and write poetry and novels and shit like that, and we still have to do all the menial bullshit? How the fuck did we end up here? Like, I don't like, am I taking crazy pills, or is this how is this the cyberpunk endgame that we are heading towards, instead of, I don't know, them doing a lot of the, which, again, even if you had all the bots doing say all of our work, then you get into the question of, is that the point where we try to go to a post scarcity society? Who's going to work? Money has been, say what you want about capitalism, but it has been really really good at incentivizing people to act in ways to make things better for everyone. And so, what are we gonna do? The- Nobody, like, great, all the jobs are automated, or all that's left is the trades. I I don't know. I don't. Part of me just doesn't understand the end game here. I'm assuming that's just because I'm an idiot and I don't understand the genius behind everything. Because all I am for a living is an accountant. But I don't know. This was certainly a 40-minute ramble. Oh, Ryan, when you listen to this, I should not be left alone. Otherwise, I'm going to incoherently rant about AI and the dangers of robosexuals and why everyone's going to get their own personal chatbot and none of it's going to matter. Which still, I don't think it's actually going to get that bad. I do think the world-ending things are definitely played up. Because I mean, I'm not in Silicon Valley or anything like that. So I mean, all the people that I talk to on a daily basis, hell, most of them have only a basic understanding of how a lot of this stuff works because they're busy doing other things. They're not keeping up on the hottest, Silicon Valley bullshit to come out of there. And, their jobs aren't going anywhere anytime soon, but it's one of those weird ones where, to me at least, it seems both overhyped and yet still understated, because there is wild stuff that it's capable of doing, which is really cool. I'm waiting for the days somebody is able to develop a game that actually takes advantage of those language models and allows each NPC to be fully immersive. I mean, to me, that's the one use case I'm waiting for, is either an MMO or some RPG where the interactions with the non-player characters are language model driven, which allows for incredible role playing potentialities. Baldur's Gate 3 was amazing for how much care and effort that was put into it. But there's something about that idea of it's a truly kind of living world. To me, that's the one I'm excited about. I think there's a lot of cool stuff in games that can take advantage of it. I think most of the AI art is derivative, and you can kind of tell a lot of it, but I don't know. Those are just my somewhat informed views on AI here, because we have to feed the algorithm another episode. I hope, if you've made it to the end of this episode, for starters, thank you for listening to my bullshit for 43 minutes. If you got something of value, let me know. God, I hope there's something there. If not, let me know that Connor never fucking ramble again for 45 minutes, because holy shit, dude, you need somebody else to talk to because you won't stop talking, which also totally fair. But if you have made it to this part or this far, I do appreciate you. I appreciate you listening to my bullshit this entire time. And God willing, Ryan will be back for next week's episode. We'll see you then.